We are live. This is going to be so amazing. Hey, Instagram. Hey, Facebook, YouTube, everybody. Thank you so much for joining All Things Woman Season 5 premiere. I am so excited to be joined by this beautiful and amazing and anointed woman of God. I just cannot say enough about how beautiful she is. When she walked in, I was just taken aback because not only are you beautiful outside, your beauty inside radiates. So I'm so excited to get into this conversation with you this evening. If you're just joining us, we are live on Instagram, on J Renee's page. We're live on Facebook as well. So make sure, hey guys, that you go and like all of our pages. We are so excited to get into this conversation tonight. So I'm going to begin just by talking a little bit about the show and how we got to season 5. So, long story short, ever since I was a little girl, I always loved Oprah. And I always, of course everybody knows her, like she's like everybody's role model. I always loved how she was able to connect with people through conversation. And so I had a dream to start my own talk show. And here we are, season 5. We've done almost 30 episodes.
Wow.
Yes. And we've been traveling around. Yes, God is good. God is good. Been traveling around and meeting different women, and it has just been so amazing. So tonight we are here for the season 5 premiere, and we have Miss J Renee. We are here in the ATL, guys. I am so excited. Can you do us a favor? If you can, go ahead and share the video out so that people can join us in this conversation. And we're going to jump on in. I do want to let you guys know that I really want you to connect with J Renee because she has some amazing things going on. And we're going to talk about all of that tonight. But the purpose of our show is to celebrate the masterpiece of woman. I always have this thing where I say that God is the greatest artist and that we are his masterpiece. Absolutely. And so, yes, so as we go through all of our trials and tribulations and phases and challenges, it's just a part of God making us into who he created us to be.
Absolutely.
So without further ado, we are going to jump into this conversation. J Renee, tell us who you are. Who are you? You're so amazing. Who are you?
Who is J Renee?
Who is J Renee?
J Renee is an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
J Renee is an author. J Renee is a speaker. J Renee is a woman.
Yes.
J Renee is a woman that is relentlessly in the pursuit of purpose. Relentlessly, in the pursuit of destiny.
Yeah.
She's a woman that loves women.
Mm-hmm.
And that just wants to see everybody win.
Yes, I love it. I love it. What do you mean when you say relentlessly?
Relentlessly meaning it's not something that's always easy.
Yeah.
It's not something that you always enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that you always want to do. But I made the decision that I'm going to be everything that I've been called to be. I'm going to do everything I've been called to do.
Yes.
And I'm going to reach everyone that I've been called to reach.
Yes.
Regardless of what happens, regardless of what I experience, regardless of the challenges, I am relentless in my pursuit to become the woman that God has called me to be.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Now let's back up. Who have you always known that you were, like from childhood? Because when we think about purpose, a lot of times we think about what we do.
Right.
Sometimes people kind of portray purpose as this thing that we do, or this job, or this position, or
Right.
this, I was born to be a doctor, or I was born to be this or that. But who have you known that you were, like the core of you?
It's interesting because I've always been very self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that in the sense that I could clearly hear the voice of God at a very young age.
Wow.
And I was always future focused. I knew I was a visionary at a very young age.
Yeah.
I forgot
There
to
you
put
go.
in the list of stuff that J Renee is. Above all, I believe that I'm definitely a visionary, and I knew that at a very young age.
Yeah.
I always saw far into the future.
Okay.
Many people that were around me as a child, they talk about how, from the time I was 4 years old, that's when I started telling people I was going to be a hairstylist. My my dad told me I wasn't gonna make no money being a hairstylist, so I said I'm gonna own some salons then.
Yeah.
You know, I knew that then, and then even into as I got older and I realized that, and when I say got older, I mean 10, 11, 12. At that time, I began to realize that I had entrepreneurial desires outside of just being a hairstylist. I knew that was something I was good at, even at that age, but I knew that there was so much more to me. And specifically, you know, I knew that God called me at the age of 7.
Yeah.
So even in that space, I knew then, number one, I'm not normal, even though I wanted to be.
Yeah.
I wanted to be normal so bad, but I knew I wasn't normal at a very young age.
Yeah.
I knew I was a visionary, and I knew I was going to change the world.
Wow.
Those 3 things I knew at a very young age. And it scared the life out of me, and it made me run as far as I could in the opposite direction, baby. I didn't want to be nobody's example. I didn't want to be nobody's world changer. I wanted to be normal, and I wanted to blend in.
Wow. And how have your influences growing up, whether it was your parents or people you were around, what part did they play in helping you discover at an early age that you were called to change the world?
So my parents were big influences for me. My dad was a pastor, and my mom was, of course, my mom was that first lady that, you know, my mom was the first lady that kind of did everything.
Yeah.
She was that super first lady. She wasn't just the front row.
Right.
My mama was over the women's ministry. My mama was over prayer ministry, and my mom was an educator simultaneously. So my parents were very instrumental in me. They saw things in me that I didn't necessarily see at a very young age. And even, you know, I remember people prophesying things over me as a child, like very specific things, like there's a peculiar anointing on that child. Now, I didn't know exactly what that meant at the time, but even then, my parents knew that there was something on me that they had to protect. Yeah. So they were very intentional, especially my father, who passed away when I was 17, but I know that he knew that he wasn't going to live long. And he used to tell me that. I mean, my whole life, he used to tell all of us, I'm not going to live long. He told, like, my whole life. Wow. He literally, so he was very intentional about introducing me to certain things at a young age. He sparked my desire for real estate at a young age. He sparked my desire just to really be grounded, not just as a woman, not just as a believer, but just in life, period. I mean, the stuff that my dad was talking to me about when I was in middle school was like way over my head. Wow. But I am the woman I am today because of that. Yeah. And also my oldest brother was my first introduction to entrepreneurship because I come from a family of education. You get degrees, you get a good job, you work there for 20, 30 years and you retire. Yeah. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but I was not exposed to entrepreneurship like that until my oldest brother began to go into that avenue. And one thing everybody in my family was always intentional about was education beyond school. We read books. Yeah. Like, I didn't have a lot of toys growing up. I had books. Right. So my oldest brother, when he would come in town, because he's 17 years older than me, so when he would come in town, like, my brother didn't take me to the mall. He didn't take me to Chuck E. Cheese. We used to go to Books A Million and sit in Books A Million. Yeah. So he was extremely influential, and he actually bought me my first book that I used to write my first business plan, How to Become a Teenage Millionaire. I still have that book, and he bought me that book when I was 12. Wow. So my brother and my parents were all extremely influential in me being the woman that I am today.
I love it. And I want to go back to something. So you said that your family was huge on education, and the norm was, you know, go to school, get an education, right, and, you know, get a good job, get a profession. But entrepreneurship wasn't something that was, I guess, the norm in your family. Right. So, okay, let's be real. We are growing up, like our generation in terms of being millennials, we are growing up in an era where entrepreneurship is normal. Right. Whether it's all on point, whether it's all as professional as it could be, you know, either way, people are entering into a space where it's okay to be an entrepreneur. It's okay to do something different. And I say all the time, I have 2 sons. I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. And I always say that I can already see their gifts and talents, right? I know how much time, energy, space, money my husband and I both spent to get 3 degrees apiece.
Right.
At the end of the day, I value education, but I want my sons to know that if they choose a different route and they still become who God called them to be, that's okay.
Right.
And so what do you think about that in terms of people out there who may feel that going to college, getting student loans and all of that is not really what they want to do? How does that relate to who God created us to be as opposed to what we're created to do? I know that was a loaded question.
Well, one thing about it, like you said, we just live in a totally different era now.
Yeah.
And once upon a time, a college education or having letters behind your name guaranteed you something.
Exactly.
In this day and time, it doesn't guarantee you anything. And it really doesn't matter what letters before or what letters after. You can still be in the same job struggle. You can still be in the same financial struggle as somebody who did nothing. Exactly. And then you have people who, didn't get any degrees, didn't invest any time into education, that can, post a video on Instagram and go viral and, be a millionaire. Yeah. But one thing I always stress is that regardless of what avenue you pursue and how you pursue it, education is important.
Absolutely.
I've read more books outside of college than I ever read in college.
Yeah.
I've read more books outside of formal education, or I've studied more and taken more classes outside of a formal education setting than I ever did in formal education.
Yes.
So, when I talk to people and, they tell me, I don't necessarily want to go to college, I don't think it's for me, whatever, I don't down it at all.
Right.
I believe that it definitely serves its purpose.
Absolutely.
And I do believe that depending on what you want to pursue, it does, the discipline of being able to commit to a program and an education.
Yes.
That sets you up for a lot.
It does.
So it's not necessarily about, just being able to say that you have it, especially beyond the bachelor's level, because bachelor's honestly is like extended high school.
Yeah.
And you still take a bunch of stupid classes, that you don't need. But, when you get into specified education, it speaks something to who you are to be able to say, I had the discipline to pursue this,
Yeah.
So I definitely believe it. I definitely support it. But like I said, the one thing that I always press is that just because you decide you're not going to go to college doesn't mean that you don't pursue education. If you're not going to, you still need to, as much as it depends on you, load yourself. Like,
with
that's
knowledge
going to pay off.
Yes, absolutely.
So, like I said, I love reading. I was a terrible student, but you wouldn't be able to tell by how much I read now.
Wow.
And how much I study now. Just because I understand that, it's up to me.
Yeah.
My intelligence, whether or not I'm stupid or smart.
And I don't know. I was thinking about something. I always wonder, and I think I kind of asked God this question. I believe that God speaks to us based on what we know. And I know that may not sound right. What I'm trying to say is that the more knowledge we have, the more God can speak through that knowledge.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, like if I open myself up to a different capacity to receive information, whether it's through school, whether it's through mentorship, whether it's through courses, classes, coaching, then I open myself up to a greater capacity to be able to hear from the Lord in a different way.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about purpose a little bit. So purpose is a big word now. It's everybody's talking about purpose. Follow your dreams. Purpose is such a loaded topic. For someone out there who may be wondering still, and they could be 40, 50 years old, they still don't understand purpose or know what purpose is. What would you say to that person?
Well, in the most simple way to describe it, purpose essentially is your why.
Yeah. Like
you said, a lot of people, they often confuse purpose with a job. They often confuse purpose with this magical place that you're supposed to end up one day where everything is right and everything makes sense. That's
right.
not,
Like a
it's not it at all.
destination.
And purpose is not a destination.
It's not a destination.
Purpose is the journey.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So literally, and for me, that revelation is what really, it's the thing that's kind of kept me streamlined through every season of transition, because my why doesn't change. Your what will change.
Yes.
You know, you'll go through
Absolutely.
different seasons where you may be operating in certain capacities. You may be working this type of job. You may be at this church. You may be working with this ministry, you know, whatever. But your why doesn't change.
Yeah.
You know, the reason why you were created, the why behind what you do does not change.
Yes.
So my advice to people that are struggling with that is always find your why.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Don't focus on the what. Because as long as you know the why and you got the Holy Ghost, the what will come.
Right.
You know?
And the what changes from season to season.
The what absolutely will
Yes.
change. But the why, like I said, will not change.
Yeah. So talk to me about when you believe I know we talked about your childhood and, you know, people spoke into your life and they trained you up and you knew or you had an inkling of what God created you to do. Talk to me about when you kind of had that revelatory moment of, oh my God, this is it. I'll give you an example. I'll never forget when I did my first show, right? I already had so many other things going on, and everything in me was saying, don't do it, don't do it. You already have too much going on. You know, what are people going to say? Oh, here she goes again. I'm doing something different. But I would never forget, we had access to a local station on Comcast in Delaware, where my husband and I have a church. And I would never forget my first interview. I set up like 3 or 4 guests. I was going to take like 3 shows in one day. I would never forget my first interview. It literally felt like, oh my God, this is it. I mean, I'm good at other stuff, you know,
right.
art and all kinds of other creative stuff. But talking to people and like pulling what's in them out, I was just like, oh my God, that's it. Have you had, or when have you had one of those moments?
I actually had that moment about 10 years ago. At the time, I was in school and I was just doing hair and makeup on the side. I didn't have my license, just cussing.
Right. That college hustle.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So at the time, though, I was working out of my apartment, and I actually told this story in my first book, The Upgrade, from when there was a woman who I was doing her hair, and I ended up doing like this little sassy bob on her. You know, I didn't think nothing of it,
right.
but you know, she had, you know, been going to a crazy, you know, situation before, and so, you know, her coming to me was the first time, you know, she really got her hair done for real. So I say all that to say, when she got done, at the time, I didn't have, I just used to do hair sitting in a chair in front of the TV. So I didn't have like hand mirror or nothing. So when my customers got done, they had to go to the bathroom.
Right.
So she got up, went to my bathroom, and you know, I'm cleaning up minding my business, and I hear like screaming come from the bathroom. So I go to the bathroom, and I'm like, what's wrong?
Right.
And she looks at me with tears in her eyes and says, I have never looked like this in my life.
Oh my God.
And she just hugged me, and it caught me off guard because nobody had ever been that emotional.
Right.
But at that moment, I realized this is bigger than me doing hair.
Yes.
This is bigger than me doing makeup. Like, I am a transformer. That this is exactly what I was called to do. Not specific to a what, but that was my light bulb moment. And I knew it was something that I enjoyed. Right. But that was the moment that kind of helped me bring it all together. Okay. Because, I mean, that moment almost brought me to tears. You know, because I was just, like I said, that had never happened before. But that was the game changer for me. That was when I realized it's something to this thing. Yeah.
And after you had that moment, what was your journey like after that? Because, you know, when you have moments like that, it's a momentum that really cannot be explained. You know, once you connect with purpose like that, once you connect with a part of you that you weren't necessarily fully tapped into, or you didn't have, you know, that revelation about, like, God created me to transform. Oh my God. Like, God created me to sit down with people so they can share their stories and heal others and deliver others. When you have those moments like that, there's just this momentum and this energy that happens that begins to drive you right towards, you know, who you're called to be and the people you're called to touch. So what was your journey like after that? What happened after that? You hadn't written Upgrade. This was 10 years ago. Right.
I had started the Upgrade.
Okay.
But I hadn't finished it. So honestly, from that moment, the first thing I did was go into prayer. And I spent a season just praying.
Yeah.
And over the course of the next 30 days, I wrote out what a 10-year plan for me would look like.
Okay.
Now, some of that was me, some of that was God.
Yeah.
but because of the fact that, like I said, I'm a visionary, I've always saw far into the future.
Yes.
And I knew that God had shown me really big pictures of myself at a young age.
Yeah.
So I said, God, if I'm here, what about here is going to take me to there?
Yeah.
And so from there, I wrote out a 10-year plan, which has gone totally different. But I knew from that point, that was when, God had shown me, you're going to be in the beauty industry for 5 years, professionally. I worked for 8 years between makeup, hair, and then professionally in the salon for 5 years. But that was when I knew this is just going to be for a season. And that was going to be the launching pad for everything else that came. But like I said, from the moment, a lot of times, like you said, that moment kind of thrusts us in.
Yes.
When in all actuality, there's really power in stepping back and saying, okay, God, I see what you're doing.
Yes.
But before I jump, I need you to show me.
Yes.
Absolutely. And don't go ahead of him, because like I said, I had planned out 10 years in the future.
Right.
When he had only given me 5 at that point. But I had planned all the way out.
That's what we do. I will never forget this one moment I had. After college, I went to the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, and after that, I decided I wanted to travel, and I didn't know exactly where I wanted to go. I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I knew I did the same thing you did. I did a life plan, and I knew that on that life plan, first of all, marriage was on there. Marriage hadn't happened, so I was like, okay, well, what's next? Right. I had already planned out like what age I wanted to get married. Like, I was serious about planning, writing the vision out. I believed in all of that. I'll never forget. I was at a place where I had worked at a university for a couple of years. I coached. I had done all these things. And I woke up one day and I was like, it's time for me to go. Like, everything around me just looked weird. And I was like, I'm not supposed to be here anymore. And it wasn't something I could really tell people. It was something that I just felt, I just discerned, like, this season is over. And something came to me in that season that I still use today, and it's go and I'll show you. It's go and I'll show you. And it speaks to how the Lord will wreck our plans, number one. I mean, what?
I was going to turn it upside down.
Like, when you wrote that part down, what were you thinking? Because that wasn't me. But go and I'll show you. And I'm telling you, I don't even know how I did it, but I saved up money. I took like 6 months. I started saving up money. I looked for programs overseas. I was like, what am I gonna do when I get there? I didn't even know anybody. I was like, who am I gonna live with? I had no clue. I was just crazy like that. And long story short, I ended up going overseas. And when I got to the airport to get ready to go, I lied to you not. I sat in front of the big window where you can look out and see all the planes. Mm-hmm. It was the most beautiful rainbow that you could ever see. And it was a full rainbow. Wow. But it was because I went. Right. And from that moment, it released a courage. It released this place where fear was there. It's there. But it didn't rule me. You know what I mean?
Right.
I have goosebumps thinking about it, because I believe that in that moment, because I went, something shifted in my life. You know what I mean? Something shifted in my life. I hadn't met my husband at that point. I was still single. I was still figuring out my life. I just knew that I wasn't supposed to be in that place anymore. And I knew that I wanted to pursue my dreams, and one of my dreams was to travel. That was on my life plan. I was like, okay, this is next. Let's do it. No kids, no husband, I'm out. And the Lord was like, go and I'll show you. And I went, and every step was just
good.
Listen, I'm picturing it right now. Like,
go and I'll show you.
Go and I will show you. I will show you the land. I can't show you right now because you have to go first. And I think that so many dreamers are stuck. So many people who want to relentlessly pursue God are stuck. So many people who maybe mothers and wives, they're stuck in their households and they're just complacent and they don't know, so they don't go. And when you're, a type A personality and you're that person who has to be in control and you want to know all the steps like me, then it can prevent you from being free and from doing some of the things that God has created you to do, because you do want to see. You do want to know how it's going to happen. You do want to know all those details when God is saying, you got to go. And I'm going to show you. And that leads me into my next question, because you had a situation where you were living in Tennessee.
Correct.
You grew up in Tennessee. And one day, you decided or you felt or discerned that the Lord was like, go. Talk us through that.
Go and I'll show you.
See?
You literally just talked out my life. So like you said, I was born and raised in Tennessee. I had been living in Nashville for about 10 years. And I really didn't have any intention on leaving Nashville. I knew that I was going to leave eventually, but I thought I was going to leave because my husband was going to come.
Right.
And after, when me and my husband got married, then I was going to leave. I had no intention to leave before.
Right.
I had a house, had a business, had a career. I was straight. But in December of 2016, I ended up getting into a car accident. And this was on the back end of probably about 2 years after my first book was released. I just felt extremely lost.
Yeah.
It was like I was moving, but I felt like I wasn't going anywhere. I felt like I had plateaued out, and I was just like, God, like, what's next?
What's next? Yeah.
And I just felt like, I can hear God about everything else. Why can't I hear God concerning this? And I began to resent the place that I was in. And one thing that I always tell people, like, when your season is up, when you get miserable. You can be in a place and be uncomfortable. Yeah. But it's a difference between being uncomfortable and being miserable. I was miserable. And I was just like, God, I don't understand. What's next? And so I ended up getting into this car accident. And I get injured in the accident, ended up hurting my neck and my shoulder, which, being a hairstylist, you need.
Yes, you do.
And the interesting thing is, like I mentioned before, God had told me when I began doing hair, I'm giving you 5 years in the salon.
Okay.
Well, I was over 5. I was going into my 6th year. And I knew it was time for me to transition. I was beginning to resent something that I used to love. It didn't feel the same. But I was just like, I don't understand, God. Why can't I hear you?
Yeah.
I had other business endeavors. I was building up things. I was working my plan. But I was like, why can't I hear you? So God had to literally put me on my back for 6 months. I was not able to work full time for 6 months. And this is someone who was a working machine.
Yes. Yeah.
But I was not able to work full time for 6 months. And during that time, I went through every emotion. I was mad. I was depressed. I was like, I don't understand. I was already going through hell. I didn't need more hell. You know what I'm saying? Like, what was the point of this? Yeah. But in that space, God really brought it to my attention how much of my will I was committed to.
Wow.
I was asking for God to give me direction. I was asking God to give me answers, but I wanted Him to answer me within the confinement of my agenda. So
I'm sorry. I need you to say that again. You can't speak past that right there.
I was praying for answer. Wow. I was praying for revelation. I was praying for my next move, but I wanted it to be within the confinements of my agenda. Okay. I didn't want to be uncomfortable. I had rules. I had a beautiful house that I wasn't going to move out of. Yes, God, I'll transition in career, but my salary can't change. And even I got to the point where I was entertaining location. Yeah. But I said, I'm not going to Atlanta.
Right.
I had all these rules of how things were going to have to happen and how things were going to have to move. Yeah. And I realized that was literally the thing that had been holding me up, and that had really had the voice of God on mute in my head. It wasn't that he didn't want to talk to me. It wasn't that he wasn't showing me things, because even, truth be told, I've been saying I don't want to move to Atlanta for a long time. That's because I knew in the back of my head, God was like, Atlanta, you know what I'm saying? But I had just convinced myself, like, no, I don't want to live there, Mm-hmm. But so God had to get me to a place where I was desperate. I had to hit rock bottom. I had to get to the point where, honestly, I was questioning, like, I feel like I'm about to lose everything. Yeah. I moved my salon, I had done all these things, and I still was just like, I feel like, and I physically was not getting better. And the crazy thing is, for the type of accident I had, like, I didn't even think I was hurt that bad. Wow. But for whatever reason, this seemingly minor injury had me out of work, for 6 months. But once I got to the point where I said, God, I don't care where, I don't care what, I don't care when. Yeah. Whatever you tell me to do, I'll go. Do it, yeah. Literally, I told God verbatim, I said, if you tell me to move to Kansas tomorrow, I'll go. Yeah. And I meant that thing from the bottom of my heart. And from the time that once I released all my agenda, once I gave up my schedule, once I gave up my 10-year plan, once I said, God, if I got to walk away from my salary, if I have to walk away from my business, everything that I built, yes, whatever you tell me to do, I'll go. And literally, I kid you not, it was less than 30 days where, things just began
to line up.
Like, go now.
It was that place of just surrender.
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally. And that was the first, I didn't realize I had never surrendered before. Wow. Prior to that.
Because you probably thought that you did.
I thought I did. Yeah. I thought, but in all actuality, I was really good at negotiating, God. Yes. I had come to a happy medium. Like, I'll meet you here, Right. Like, I'm not, I ain't stepping my foot all the way out there, but I'll meet you in the middle and inspire people. Right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I ain't finna pray and prophesy. But, I'll motivate somebody.
But I will do this.
I'll encourage somebody. Like, I had negotiated with God for a long time, but like I said, I had to hit all the way at the bottom. I was like, okay, God. That was literally my Jonah experience. He had to toss me around in that fish. And I came out like, all right, Nineveh. I'll go. And I'm here.
And here you are. And how long have you been here?
6 months. I just hit 6 months.
6 months.
So I'm fresh.
You are fresh. Wow. Tell us about how your boutique and your book kind of play a part in what you do for women in terms of transformation. Image, beauty, all of that. How does that play into, I guess, your ministry and who you've been created to be?
So, I was a fashion merchandising major at Tennessee State. Okay. So I always had a desire. Initially, it was my desire to own franchise boutiques. Okay. But from that time when I had that idea initially, that was like high school, and the way that we buy has drastically changed. So online wasn't even a thing then. Right. But I realized when I got to school, and like I said, as I started to do hair and makeup, and I did personal styling, personal shopping. My first business was actually called Phase 1 Image Consulting, and I dealt with head to toe imaging. I realized that the physical, what women see in the mirror, is the gate. Not only is it the gate to everything that we are and everything that we do, it's a representation of what's happening inside. Okay. And we wear our emotions. Yeah. We wear our confidence or the lack thereof. That physical woman really does make a difference. And I realized that when I had that moment where my customer just busted out crying. Like, it really, really does play a part. And so over the course of me working in the beauty industry, I came in contact with so many women that were hurting and unhappy. And much of that either showed in the way that they looked, or they were unhappy with the way that they looked, so it transferred into other areas, which was really the inspiration for me writing my first book, The Upgrade, because there really is a psychological explanation for what we see physically. So if we can deal with what's happening in here that's making me look like this, or why do I feel like I have to wear makeup every day? Why am I not confident not wearing makeup every day? Or why do I go out the house looking a fool? You know what I'm saying? Why do I feel okay? You know, I'll sit and I'll scroll and I'll admire women that carry themselves in a certain way on Instagram all day, but then when I leave the house in sweats, and I'll sit there feeling terrible about myself watching women walk past me. You know, those types of things were the things that I began to tap into with my book. But the thing that brought it all together, like I said before, was my why. I knew that I was called to be a transformer, and I knew that my gift of transformation was not limited to one particular thing.
I love it.
So, you know, the Bible says that to everything there is a season. And I believe that applies to careers. I believe that applies to locations.
Yes.
So I said, you know, God, for the season that I'm in right now, and the skill set that I have, and the people that I have access to, how can I maximize what you've called me to do? And from there, it was like, this is what you have your hands in.
Yeah.
You have fashion, you have hair, you have makeup, you know, you have style. Literally, you have your hands in all of these things that physically beautify a woman. So from there, I just made the decision to, like I said, maximize everything that I had access to at the time. The store was always the long-term goal.
Online or physical?
Online. Well, it changed eventually to online. Like I said, initially online wasn't a thing. But having the store, and actually, surprise, surprise, I'm actually working on my own line right now.
Oh, yeah.
Which
I love it.
Yet. But I'm working on my own line right now. And so all of these things were, like I said, they were a part of the branch out. And I feel like that, not just, you know, even though my root was in the beauty industry, literally everything that I have access to within the season that I'm in, I just ask God, what can I do in this space? How can I branch out and maximize my current resources, my current skill set? And at that time, that's what it was.
Well, I want you to know that you are doing a fabulous job.
Thank you.
Your Instagram is popping. It's very inspiring. I love all of your posts. Hey guys, isn't her Instagram amazing? Like every day.
I wish I could see the comments.
I know. If you guys have any questions, before we wrap it up, we want to know what you want to ask J Renee. So I'm sitting here looking at our live feed, and if you have any questions, go ahead and type them in now. Anything you want to know, let us know, and we're going to try to answer your questions.
Any questions?
Any questions, guys? Any questions?
Hey,
Facebook. Hey, Facebook.
Hey, Facebook. All Things Woman TV on Facebook.
Yes.
If you have any questions.
Yes. Please connect. Please connect. We're so excited to be sharing with you guys this evening. We really hope that you are being inspired. These are the Dream Girl episodes, and so I'll be interviewing so many amazing women. And you're the season premiere, girl. You setting it off. Let me find out. Yes, but it's weird because I feel like we met before or something. It's really interesting.
Organic vibe.
I love that. I always love when that happens. It's amazing. So we've been talking about everything from purpose to hearing from God to understanding that sometimes we negotiate with God and we try to put Him in our plan.
Listen.
Isn't it amazing?
The audacity of us
who
to
are
think
we? Like,
we can negotiate with God.
Right. We're going to tell God what we're not going to do.
Oh, I thought that was a question.
Any questions? Okay. Comments. Let's look at a few of the comments before we move on. Do you have any questions for me, J Renee? While we're here, I mean, we're here.
Any questions? Let's see.
Me?
I get to sit.
Yes, you get to interview me. Let's switch it up.
So question. So we kind of, well, I don't want to go ahead of you.
No, you're fine.
But we kind of dibbled and dabbled in our conversation prior to the live about fear.
Yes.
And so for you to launch out and do something like this, did you know people that did it, or was this a foreign concept? Did you have support? How did you tackle, because I mean, a lot of times when we do things that aren't the norm or things that people don't understand, you know, it's challenging.
It is.
So how did you tackle such a concept of doing All Things Woman TV?
So I'll be honest with you, I did not have anyone around me who was doing it. So here's the thing. Of course, you know, when you have an idea or you believe that God has called you to do something, or you just have an idea, you kind of think of it on a big scale. So what I had to do was to figure out, I know that where I wanted to end, which I still haven't seen today. I know where I want to be, and I know what I have seen, right? But how do I get there? Like exactly what you said. So I had to make a decision. I said, Facebook has a platform that allows people to go live. Why not create a show that allows me to do what I would want to do in the future? And I had a decision to either start it where I was or wait. But the question becomes, how will you ever get there if you don't start?
Where you are.
Exactly where you are. And one of the guys at our church, like I said, he had access to a studio. And I was like, okay, why can't I just go into the studio? You know, there were just like plain white couches. Bring my stuff in. I would bring my art in, have like little pillows, and I would just bring all my stuff in. Rugs. I mean, I brought in a whole set, just like I did right here. And from there, I just started it.
Wow. And
it like caught fire. And people, they wanted to see it. And then they would share, and it was just this big networking thing. And so here we are today.
Here we are
today in the ATL.
In the ATL.
Yes. So that's how it happened. And I really, what I would say, what I hope people will get from that is that you really do have to just start where you are. Because like, okay, let's talk about clothing lines, okay? Clothing lines, something else that I wanted to do since I was like a teenager. Even though you may have an idea, you're never going to see it to fruition if you don't start. And so, example, your boutique, prime example. You may have seen in the past that you wanted to do your own clothing line, but why not start with the boutique? I think sometimes we talk ourselves out of the dream because we don't want to start small,
right?
Or we don't want people to think that this is really what we want to do. And it may not, like I started off with t-shirts. It may not be exactly what you want, but you gotta start.
Right, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Exactly. Like you have to start. And so now, you know, I paint on clothes and you do what you have to do until you figure it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
I actually talk about that in my second book, True Confessions of a Visionary, just talking about the importance of like starting, number one, being humble and understanding that half of the people that you look up to and that you're inspired by, they had to start somewhere.
They had a journey. But we don't always see that.
Right. That's and I mean, we see Oprah as she is now.
Right.
But we don't ever talk about where she started.
Yep.
She went to the Tennessee State University, by the way. But, you know, you have to start somewhere. And that was even a decision that I made. You know, it literally, as we look at, as I look at every business endeavor or anything that I've ever done, my beginning was so much smaller than what I see now.
Yep.
You know, I started off doing hair in my dorm room in Wilson Hall at Tennessee State University. My first sew-in special was $30. Now, if you ever sat in my chair, you know you couldn't get nothing for no $30. But I started off with a $30 sew-in special. You know, like when I first launched my boutique, I started off with 5 pieces. You know, and it was just a tab on my regular website, you know, to shop with 5 pieces. You know, I had 1 rack in the dining room of my 1-bedroom apartment, and I went from that 1-bedroom apartment to a whole room in the house that I built.
Wow.
You know, I had to start somewhere.
You had to start.
You know, and so that's the biggest thing. Like, don't be so arrogant. Yeah. And don't be so stuck on, and not even just arrogant. Get off of the computer and stop studying the gospel according to Instagram that tells you that you're supposed
to preach.
You know, you're supposed to wake up and be making 6 figures. You know, you're supposed to wake up and all of a sudden it's supposed to work. It does.
Can we just say that everybody that's teaching people to make 6 figures has not made 6 figures?
And everybody that's teaching people how to make 6 figures only made 6 figures one time. It's a difference. Or many of those people.
I'm just saying.
And there's a difference between net and gross.
Okay. We're going to...
But we're going to,
transition.
Fruit. We need to see fruit.
We need to see fruit.
We need to see fruit.
Okay. So we do have a question.
Okay.
Have you ever been going on the path that God led you and had a season of what seemed like no progression?
Have I? Have I? I absolutely have. I absolutely have. Honestly, I actually was reading last week. God led me to go back. Well, I've been on a journey of de-churching myself.
De-churching, I like that.
What I mean by that is, I grew up in church. Like I said, my parents were pastors. So, I was in church all the time. Yeah. I was active in ministry as well, pretty much my entire life. So I heard the stories, and a lot of times we become so familiar and so complacent with these children's church revelations of biblical stories that we miss the meat of what was really behind it. So, I've been on a journey over the course of the last year of randomly going back and studying stories that I thought I knew.
Okay.
So recently, this past week, I went back and I had been studying the story of the children of Israel, and how they came out of bondage and how they ended up in the wilderness and all this stuff. We have general understandings of that. If you've been in church any amount of time, you've heard people talk about that. You've heard people preach about that. But the thing that really stood out to me last week as I was reading was that the children of Israel, they were in a bad situation, and so they cried out for a deliverer. God came through. He brings them out. Now, the goal was to get to the promised land.
Yes.
But prior to getting to the promised land, they had to go through the wilderness, and they had to go through what was supposed to be a season. But because of their disobedience, and because of the fact that they were in a space that was uncomfortable, because of the fact that, it didn't make sense to them, they're like, we were better off in slavery than being out here in this mess, and we wandering around. Many of them ended up dying in the place that they were only supposed to pass through.
Wow.
And so, talking about being in a season where there's no movement, there's always movement. As long as you are living a life that's consciously submitted to God, there's always movement. Yeah. It's not always movement in the way that we think it's supposed to be
show
movement,
up, right?
But there's always movement. I know that one thing that I've learned specifically in this season of my life, that delays are always for development. Anytime you're in a space where you feel like nothing's happening, or you feel like you're stuck in that transitional place, it's because of the fact that there's something that you didn't have here that you need there. So one thing I learned was to really, number one, okay, God, clear me of my agenda. Us type A personalities, control freaks, that has to be something we consistently pray. God, clear me of my agenda.
Please, God.
Because half the time that's our problem. We have to be in control. But I've made the decision now that, again, like you were saying earlier, as you grow in knowledge of God, it really helps you hear Him. And once you understand His tendencies, you understand how He works, because He's still the same God. So just seeing how He works and seeing how He puts people in seasons where to develop us, to build the gift of faith inside of us, to teach us how to trust Him. I made the decision, even in reading that story last week, that I'm not going to die in the place that I was only supposed to pass through. Wow. So from there, that literally changed the way I was praying. Like, God, show me in this season. Because if I'm here, it's for a reason.
It's for a reason. Yeah.
I know that I haven't arrived at there, but if I'm here, it's for a reason. So show me. Show me what you're trying to develop inside of me. And I made the decision that, specifically in the place that I'm in right now, yes, I'm still in transition. Yeah. I know I'm on the way to something. I know something's about to snap any day now, but I made the decision that I'm going to make the most of my season of preparation.
I love that.
So I've been reading like crazy. I've been studying like crazy. I've really been, like I said, I'm trying to make the most of this space. Yeah. Because I know there's going to come a time where preparation is going to meet opportunity.
Yes.
I
love it.
So rather than me sitting up here crying and whining, which would have been my response in different seasons of my life. Yeah. Being upset, being depressed, anxiety, finding something random to go do that I ain't supposed to be doing. You know, that was my response in different spaces. But like I said, now that I've come into knowledge of God and I know how he works and I know what he's doing right now, I made the decision. Listen, when I come out of this, I'm finna come out swinging.
Yes.
Y'all finna find out what I've been doing for the last 6 months.
I love it. I love it. I love that place of peace where even when you can't see what's going to happen next, you just decide to just be okay.
Yes.
You decide to just dwell in that
trust.
season.
That's what trusting God is.
Trusting God. I love it. So for the person who asked that question, we hope and pray that we answered it for you. Yes. She said, wow, don't die in the place where you were meant to pass through. And another thing about that text is that there was a whole generation that didn't make it.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay, we can talk about that.
And there were babies that were born in dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even have a choice.
Born into it. Yes, that's a whole different topic. How can we purchase your books? And we can provide links. Yes, she said, can a link be provided for both of you? Yes, we'll post the links to both of our books. Yes. Right after the interview. And I do want to close with something, and I know you may not want to talk about this, but I think that we need to, specifically for your Instagram followers. How are you able to maintain your singlehood?
I knew that was coming.
And
I knew that was coming.
How does purpose play a part in that season of, okay, God, whenever you're ready? Because that's real.
It is.
That's real.
It is.
It's real.
And it's a real struggle.
It's real, yeah.
And it's so funny that
you asked me that. Actually.
It's so funny that you asked me that because I dodged it with a bullet.
I know you did. But you know I was coming for it.
But, you know, it's something that's very relevant. And honestly, it's something that I actually talked about it in my last book, True Confessions of a Visionary, because truth be told, as long as you're blind to who you are, to what you are, and where you're going, dating is easy.
Okay.
It's fun. It's entertainment.
Okay.
Because, you know, you're not nobody's a liability at that point.
Okay.
You know, I'm just out here kicking it. But the moment that you do come into revelation of who you are, of what you are, of where you're going, what you're called to do, what you have to protect.
Yeah.
It changes the game.
It changes the game.
It totally changes the game.
Yeah.
And I can honestly say that, you know, I've gone through spaces where for a long time, I got so used to dumbing myself down just to be able to date. I felt like nobody ever dated the totality of who I was. It was like one person would date.
That's good.
The businesswoman, one person would date, you know, the little ratchet girl from Clarksville, you know, one person might get, you know, depending on what season, you know, one person might have got the saved girl, you know, right. It just depending on how I was feeling at the time, you know, but I got used to dumbing myself down. So it became a thing where, you know, either I had to wait it out, and you know, I've had some, you know, everybody just wasn't stupid, or I just didn't have to jump stupid with everybody. But you know, I can honestly say there were spaces where, you know, I was just like, you know, I'm just doing this for entertainment. So, you know, pimping ain't easy, but you know what I'm saying? Somebody got to do it, you know? But honestly, that was where I was for a long time, because I was so discouraged with the idea of somebody actually being able to handle what was on my life.
Wow. And,
you know, men are easily intimidated, like so easily intimidated. And, you know, like I said, it was, I was so discouraged to the point where, I'll just be totally honest, at one point in my life, you know, I was even praying and asking God for the gift of singleness, because I was so frustrated.
Wow.
I was like, God, just take the desire from me. Look, I don't want to take the desire for, you know, dating, companionship, marriage, being a wife, being a mother, sex, everything. Just take the desire from me, because I was so frustrated. But the Holy Spirit really began to deal with me concerning that, because it was ultimately an issue of faith for me. You know, did I really trust God enough? I trust Him with every other part of my life, which over the course of the years, it's been a slow surrender. But I'd surrendered everything, and that was the last thing I was willing to give up, you know, because I still, you know, like I said, you know, if I wanted some entertainment, you know, wanted to do what I wanted to do.
It was accessible.
It was accessible, and, you know, it was kind of my out. But like I said, once I got to the space where I really understood that these random fools are a liability.
Yeah,
you know what I'm
saying?
It
wasn't really a game.
It really wasn't a game.
Absolutely.
So that really changed it for me. And people ask me all the time, do you date because you don't ever post nothing on Instagram, you don't never post no picture and blah blah blah. Yes, I do. Yes, I do date. But I feel like people asking, do you date because you don't post nothing on Instagram is like asking, do you breathe? Because you don't post nothing on Instagram. You know what I'm saying? I just believe that there's certain things that I've always said, if people know too much about you personally, they don't respect you professionally.
Wow.
So, I've always been very intentional about, keeping that private.
Okay. I'm sure that your followers are happy to hear that.
Yeah.
She's not just leaving you out.
No, I'm not.
She's being intentional.
Yes, I am very intentional about that. Now, the moment I get a ring, I'm gonna break the internet.
Oh, you're gonna break it. I'm gonna be right there, like
I'm gonna break the internet. But until I get a ring,
yeah,
it ain't nobody else's business.
I love it.
But love it. Like I said, it's just been something that it's been a slow surrender for me. But now, I'm at the space where I know that it's too much. I'm needing too much from God to try to withhold any part of me. You know what I'm saying? So if it means that, I'm going to go out to eat by myself for a season, which I've never minded doing that, but if it means I don't have no random entertainment, because, I always kept a ram in the bush. I
love your honesty.
But and it's funny because I never talk about this. So all things woman TV.
Oh, sorry.
You have an exclusive. But
I was coming for it though.
But But I was thinking on the way here, a lot of times we won't talk about things publicly because we don't want the accountability. And the moment it comes out of our mouth, it's a different amount of accountability. So I think, honestly, I've always dodged it so I could do whatever I wanted to do. Wow. I never talked about it because it ain't your business, and I'm going to do what I want to do. But like I said, I'm just in a different season of my life, and, I hear wedding bells somewhere. I'm prophesying in my picture. don't start going through my page trying to see who liked my picture recently. Try to see people comment. Because I know how people...
Her Instagram is lit right now. They're like, yes, keep talking. It's lit. Okay, so I know you read a lot.
I do.
So I wrote a book about my journey of singlehood, and I want you to read it. It's called Adorned While I Wait.
I definitely will.
And it's a workbook.
Okay.
And every chapter is my heart poured out on the pages of everything that God showed me in my season of waiting, which became, the subtitle is that my wait became a date with God.
Wow.
And I talk about how I went through a season of celibacy for 5 years before I got married. And I talk about how my husband and I, my husband's testimony, I finished it after I got married, which is the crazy part. So I started writing it when I was single, and I didn't finish it until after I was married. God was like, did you forget about what I told you to do? And the testimony is real. I talk about everything from the baggage that we carry to understanding the TV dads that we had in our lives and the moms that we don't realize that we're taking after, the Claire Huxtables and all the people that we grew up watching, and how that has played a part, in who we have become. It's a great book.
That sounds good. I'm gonna.
It's. I'm not just saying it because I wrote it. I'm saying.
What is it called? Adorned.
It's adorned while I wait. In other words, God adorned me. You know what I mean? And I talk about how you become a wife before you become a wife.
Absolutely.
All of that.
Absolutely.
I have you. You know how people write their list of what they want. One in a man. Well, I have you write a list. Would you date you? Would you date you? The you that you are today?
Wow.
Would you go on? Would you marry you?
I would marry
Would you marry the you that you are today?
I might have had a different answer in different.
But no, seriously, that's real.
Yeah.
And I talk about all the different areas that I worked on, and it's a good book.
I'm excited to read.
Yeah.
Adorned
I
while
can't
I
wait.
All the single ladies, adorned while I wait.
Yes. We're going to post our links up and make sure that we network with everybody. Guys, we're not going to hold you any longer. This has been so good.
Yes.
Awesome girlfriend time. I love it. It has been such an organic conversation.
Yes.
And that's exactly what I wanted. We hope that you guys have been inspired and that you will connect with us. So tell them about all of your social media and your website.
So I'm all things J Renee on everything. All things JRENEE on Instagram. Instagram at All Things J Renee, Twitter, All Things J Renee, Facebook.com/All Things J Renee. My website is allthingsjrenee.com. Easy to remember, All Things J Renee.
Love it, love it, love it. And for those of you who don't know, you can connect with our page, All Things Women TV on Instagram and All Things Women Talk Show on Facebook. Okay, I probably shouldn't say this now, but I'm definitely looking forward to other people who want to do shows like this.
Absolutely.
And I want to turn it into a networking place where people can share their shows.
Prophesy to your future.
So, yes, I mean, that is in my heart. I believe that so many people, have the gift of just, conversation. It is a gift. It is a gift. It is a gift. And so stay tuned for all that amazing stuff. I do want to say that I have a gift for J Renee. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it with this mic on. I'm going to take my mic off. But I have a gift for you. And we're going to open it up. We'll do another video. We'll open it up. It's called the Dream Girl Box. And it's my new subscription box. That is going to feature your book.
Yes.
So definitely connect with dreamgirlbox.com. We love you guys. And we thank you for tuning in. We'll be posting photos and little clips and all that good stuff. Please share the video. And thank you for tuning in. I'll be actually here again at the same spot with Tara Carissa tomorrow.
Yes,
so please tune in. I'm so excited. We'll be on at 10 o'clock a.m. Love you guys. Okay, we're taking our mics off now.
Bye.
We're going to take some pictures. Bye, guys. Bye, Facebook.